to another episode of Life Lessons with Scott and Friends. And once again, start calling you regulars, I guess. I'm joined by Clayton, Lindsey, and Ryan Rickards, who have been kind enough to come on several episodes now as we talk about life lessons that we've experienced through marriage. And the last couple of times we've been together, we've talked about parenting and some of the stories and things that we've learned early on in our marriage and as we started to raise kids. And so the last time we were together, Clayton, you threw out a question that I'll let you start with the answer tonight. And that the question was, when is the right age to start having kids? And so we'll start there. And Clayton, I'll throw it to you so you can let all of our listeners know what is the right age.
Well, it's not really a secret. There's not one. And the question was actually twofold. It was also, when are you ready to have kids? So it's both age and I guess more maturity level. And I think the reason I bring that up and why it came to my mind was I remember when Ginger and I were a young couple, and a lot of our friends, of course, were around the same age. And it was, we had Jackson fairly early in our marriage, I think within the first 2 years. And there's a lot of couples that we knew that were struggling with when to have kids. And should I wait? And should we do this? And should we do that? And I'm not ready for kids yet. I'm not ready for the responsibility. I will simply tell, I guess, obviously, mostly to any young listeners that are out there, not us old guys, but you're never ready to have kids. There's never a time, in my opinion, that you could say, I am ready to have kids. I've got my life in order. I've got my marriage in order. I've got the perfect job. I've got the maturity level. I've got the right attitude. Because if you think you're ready, you won't be once you have kids, because ultimately it's nothing what you expect. When you can talk about it, you can hear about it, you can watch it on TV. It's nothing what you expect. And especially when you have little ones, as in babies, your life changes for the better. It changes completely, not what you expected. It encompasses your life, takes it over, but it is for something that is incredible, a miracle, and you won't be ready for it. You also won't be ready for it as they get older, as they grow up, because I can say that for a fact, because I'm still not ready. Am I ready for my kids to go off to college? No. Am I ready for my younger to get into high school? No. It kind of goes back to a lot of the things I've talked about before. The way my life is and the way my attitude is just you just kind of have to roll with the punches, figure it as you go along. I mean, like I said, I've told you before, I'm not a planner. A lot of you out there listening are, and hey, by all means, that's great. Doesn't work for me. But I think you could plan for this all day long for years and you still won't have it right. So to the young couples out there that are thinking about having kids, when to have kids, when's the right age, just let it happen as God's will happen and stop worrying about it. That's my answer.
Good. Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, that, like I said, it's kind of one of those classic ones where there really is no right answer. I think the only kind of color I'd add to that is similar to what we talked about, like with marriage, is it's okay to seek out, advice and thoughts from fellow parents. But one trap to not be caught in is trying to compare yourself to how somebody else is parenting. You can get into very animated discussions, arguments, everything around, mom wants to breastfeed, mom wants to bottle feed, mom wants to stay home, mom wants to go to work, baby wants to sleep in the bed with me, baby needs to sleep in a different room. And if you start kind of going down the path of, well, so and so does it this way, you're going to get yourself kind of in a snowball of extra emotions on top of the ones that will come with just having the kids. So Yeah, really, just to kind of echo, what Clayton's saying is, there's only so much, even for the planners out there, it's only so much planning, that you can do, around that. So, seek advice, counsel from fellow parents, learn from their ways, but just know that every experience, even every child, is different. I mean, we've got three, and each one, was vastly different. The first one that we had, of course, new baby, new experience. We didn't know what we were doing, so we were very like hands-on. Every cry, every sound, every whatever, rushing to see, what's going on. Oh my gosh, something's happening. Next child, a little more laid back. And then by the third child, it was like, all right, here you go, drop off in bed, walk out the door, she can go to sleep. So every child's different. But yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about, having children, don't you're not going to be able to write a list out of, by this date, by this time, by this whatever. It's just not going to happen. Enjoy the ride. When it does happen, it'll happen if it's meant to be. And yeah, like I said, really can't add a whole lot more to that.
Yeah, I told when my oldest son Kyle and Carrie were expecting, I told Kyle one-on-one, I said, listen, here's the deal. You're going to hear from anybody and everybody about how to raise your family, how to discipline, how to, like you said, breastfeed, bottle feed, immunize, don't immunize, do this, do that. Everything is up for grabs. You're going to hear opinions about anything and everything from everyone. And I told him this because I learned it somewhat the hard way. Make sure you and Carrie are on board with each other. Stick to it, and the rest does not matter. It just doesn't matter, because if you as parents are together on how you're going to approach whatever it is, X, Y, or Z, as long as you are together and united, you'll figure it out. You'll get through it. That is the number one piece of advice I'll give to any young parents who are about to embark on having a family is you get together, you figure out what it is you want to be about in raising your kid, and stick with it. And it'll save you a lot of grief, because you lay down with your wife or you lay down with your husband every night. That's who you need to take care of, and that's who you need to be in lockstep and barrel with on how you raise your kids. So that would be my parenting advice. And no, you're never ready. We got married at 22 and had Kim when I was 23, and Andrea at 24, and then Kyle and Ryan came, thereafter. So we had 4 kids in 5 years, and somehow we got through it. God blessed us, and we were able to figure it out. And now we're on this side of it, 55, and they've long been gone for the most part out of the house, and it's been fun.
I think one thing, Scott, that you can kind of relate to more so, than Clayton and I, and maybe some of the other listeners, is, I would expect when you were raising your kids, you basically had kind of the ear or the voice of like a family member or other kind of close friends that were telling you either what to do or what not to do, and why are you doing this, why are you not doing that. Whereas, newer parents now, you've got social media, you've got TV. Like, there's not that you didn't have TV back then, but there's so many more things that are like piling in to new parents now, that can almost give them that perception of, I'm not doing it right. You've got the perfect picture of, the mom holding the baby, just, and this just looks so nice, and never see them crying or anything, on social media. And then the new mom is like, oh my gosh, my baby never stops crying, and so that's one thing I think that over time, we kind of caught the tail end of seeing that. But the challenges of that comparison of, man, am I doing this right? I think that's one thing that, kind of these new parents coming up really need to piggyback what you said about being in lockstep, with your spouse and your partner is so key, because they're going to get so just thrown in with these images of what a perfect marriage, what a perfect, child raising is like, and they can't, you can't do that. You got to know that just your life, your kids, how you're doing it, you really can't compare.
Yes, it's no different than the keeping up with the Joneses in your neighborhood.
Mhm.
From your outside yard. I want my yard to look as good as the Joneses down the street. It's the same concept with parenting, with marriage. And we talked about this before. Don't compare yourself to other families, to other marriages, because that's not your marriage. That's not your family.
Right.
And trust me, they may look perfect on the outside, but I can guarantee you they're not. I mean, we get that comment too from just friends of ours about Ginger and I and our kids. Oh, your kids are this and your kids are that, and you guys are so perfect. I'm like, whoa. We don't try to put an air on when we go outside of our house to make us look anything different than we are. But we're by far not from perfect. I mean, we make mistakes every day, all day long. And we question ourselves every day, all day long. So be careful about judging yourself versus others. Just because their yard is nice and clean does not mean they're nice and clean. It could be completely opposite.
That's right.
Yeah, I almost think about, so I worked at Lanier for a little while when the football program was just starting, and we were in charge of the field and getting it ready. And then as the season wears on, that grass starts looking a little faded. And so you go out there with the spray paint and you spray paint it green. So that way, when anybody's up in the stands looking down on the field, it all looks green.
Yep.
But if you're on top of it, you can see the wear and tear. And to me, that's much like a family. There's wear and tear in every family. There's never been a perfect set of parents ever. And that's, once I realized, I think it was Ryan, you said, if you can find people that you can go to, that you trust or you value their input, those are the people you want to connect with. And typically, those are the people who aren't judging you on how you're raising your kids. They're just there to support and help any way they can. They're not trying to dictate how you raise your kids. They're there to listen. They're there to, give you advice when you ask for it. And Lisa and I were fortunate because we had 2 or 3 sets of people at various points as the kids were coming of age that came alongside of us. To this day, there's 2 sets that have been with us the whole time, and we still talk to them. That's what I would encourage parents. Find people who know how you are approaching parenting, the things that you value, the things that are important to you, that are going to support you in that, and then lean on them when you have to. And it may be family, but it may not be.
That's right. Very true. Very true.
So what, as you think about what it took to get the kids to the point where they are now for you guys, what are some of the challenges you're faced with now? Because your kids, I think for the most part, are high school, middle school. Mine are all, mid-20s or older. So it's, I know it's changed a lot in the last 10 years. So I'd be curious to know what are the biggest challenges for you guys now? Because you're right in the midst of it.
I think we've hit on it before. One of ours, one of the I see the most is social media.
Yep.
We just hit on it about marriage and having kids and looking up to social media, but how to parent kids that live in a social media world is not something that I have any idea how to do. And I don't even know how to give you advice on it. It's something we're struggling with right now and learning how to deal with it. Now, my older 2 are into social media somewhat, but they're not buried in it. I mean, I'm fortunate that both my older kids are at the age they can have social media, are very level-headed. They don't get engrossed in it, and they don't really let it rule their lives. I mean, that's the one thing I guess that we've done somewhat right on, is trying to explain what real life is compared to what the internet says it is. It goes back to earlier I discussed that we don't sugarcoat anything with our kids. We speak to them as an adult, not as friends, but we speak to them as an adult, from a parent to an adult, if you will. I don't treat them like children. I don't sugarcoat. I don't hide. I give them the truth about things. And so, social media is something we've always obviously discussed with our kids, but I don't live in it like they do. I don't understand the pressures that they're going under or have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Sure, do I have Facebook? Of course, but I don't really do a lot with it. And that's the only thing I've got. Well, I guess I've got LinkedIn, but I don't do anything with that. So I don't understand diving into a social media platform and staying there for hours. My brain doesn't conceive that very well. So it's really twofold. Is one, I mean, that really you have a hard time talking about. It's not just the social part of it, it's the time management part of it. They get really engrossed in a device of whatever sort. And I get that, because even as an adult, we get engrossed in devices. It's changed our lives as well. But we know how to, because we're mature enough, we understand how to deal with time management issues and when we can look at it, when we can't. They don't. And that to me is almost as big of a challenge from a social mindset as anything else, is how to get them off of it to do whatever else they need to do, homework, chores, family time, whatever the most important thing is besides that's a big challenge.
Yeah, I mean, you jumped right into it. I mean, I think we talked about it on one of the prior chats. Was, kids that are growing up now, anyone that's pretty much high school on, they're growing up in a fully digital social world. I mean, the social media world. Like we came into it, high school, college, whatnot, but we didn't grow up from the minute, our youngest is 8. And I mean, since she's been born, she's seen us with, smartphones. She knows social media. So that's an absolute, I'd say our biggest challenge as well, as far as, when to allow it, what to allow, when to give a cell phone, when to not have a cell phone, like all those things. And again, what's right for us may not be right for Clayton, may not be right for Scott, may not be right for whomever else,
Right.
but it's that the alignment back together. I think the worst thing you can do is, one spouse or one parent could be like, I don't care, I think my 10-year-old should have a cell phone, and the other spouse being like, no, they've got to be 18 before they have it. And then there's that inconsistency amongst yourselves, which will really drive, further problems. So that one's absolutely a big thing on ours. The other part, though, that I'll say kind of has helped us a little bit is working to be as consistent as possible with everything, from discipline to decisions. And that means that, from the very, from early on, if a kid, one of our kids would spill something, and while it might be, hilarious because, oh, look, they did this, it's correcting them and saying, hey, look, okay, you made a mess, let's go pick it up, let's clean it up, teaching that, things are going to happen, but there's also repercussions and things that need to go along with that, and being consistent, how you treat them in the house, the same way you treat them out in public. If you're yelling and screaming at your kids, in one place, and then you're all laughing and, oh, it's okay, in another one, you're inconsistent in the message that you're giving back to your kids. So I think that was one thing that we learned and are still learning. We're definitely not perfect, but that we're working very hard to do is, if they screw up on something, let them know it's okay, we screw up too, but there's there's a repercussion to it, and what that is. And then and again, just being consistent with that over time, not because, again, as a kid, you're learning, and if you're thinking one minute, oh, mom and dad are going to laugh and think it's funny if I back the car into a mailbox, and then the next time I spill a cup of water and I get yelled at and I get sent to my room for 2 weeks. I mean, it's inconsistent messaging. So try to be as consistent as possible. I think will really go a long way.
Yeah, and I've seen that over the years with parents who, and I'm not picking on, and this is your style and it works for you, awesome. I've seen examples where people that messaging you're talking about, where they're trying to be friends with their kids, they're trying to be, you know, like the guy next door and buddy, but then when they need to be a parent, I've seen people struggle with making that transition from, okay, I can't be your friend because I need to be a parent. And I never could do that. And so I just approached it. I'm your parent and we'll be friends later, hopefully, but I'm going to be your parent. I have one task as I viewed it, and that was to raise you the best of my ability so that you could be productive and great citizen for the rest of your life.
Right.
Hopefully we'll be friends after it's all said and done. And in my case, we've been blessed, and I'm four of my closest friends happen to be my kids.
Mhm.
That blessing is not lost on me. What was there any great plan, any great scheme? No.
Mhm.
The one thing I heard you guys talking about, social media is a huge part, but the other reality that hasn't changed is how do you guys manage time within your family? Because you still have extracurricular activities. And oh yeah, you have to be a husband to your wife. You have to be a dad. How do you guys navigate that? Because all the conveniences that we have, time still is a struggle for families. So how do you guys cope with the time management aspect within your own families, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one. And it's I have to preface it with it's going to be a lot easier said than done. And we've been very fortunate with how we've been able to manage it. Early on in our careers, we were both, Lori and I were both kind of working and trying to kind of get ourselves moving forward. So there were some times where we would miss an event or we would have to work late or whatever. And so we kind of made the decision, I think, without like saying it, that we're not going to put our work in front of our kids. Like we're not going to over stress ourselves over our careers to miss out on time with our kids. And so we started kind of just being more mindful around when kids have events, when we have events, that we shut down, close out, and are just, we'll deal with this tomorrow kind of a situation. A lot though, you've got pre-COVID, you've got COVID, you've got post-COVID, you've got, going into an office, you've got, commuting, you've got working from home, travel. I mean, everybody's lifestyle is so different. So yeah, I can only speak for, for what we've done. And that's pretty much been just that. It's like, no matter whether we're, going into an office or working from home, it's managing the kids and their activities and making sure that we're not putting work over that. Now we are outnumbered. We've got, there's three of them and two of us, and so what we've done is we've said, okay, one activity per child. Sometimes that does kind of carry over if there's like a similar event, but ultimately our goal is, one, we are of the mindset that our kids still need downtime. Some parenting styles are very much, I want my kids to be gone, go to school all day and then go to events all day, and then it's a constant go, and that works for them. But for us, it's very much a schools first. You have one extracurricular activity. Ideally, we'd like it to be at school, but oftentimes it's not. And then we then just sort of have to manage schedules around that. There's days where I will take all the kids to their activities and Lori will handle stuff here at the house. There's days that she'll shift, and there's some days where we both have to divide and conquer and try to get everybody off. But all that to say, what's worked for us is, not putting, our work ahead of that, because you can't get the time back with your kids and your family. and no career is worth that. Doing that, and then again, like I said, for us, what's worked for us is limiting the amount of that extracurricular activity that we're doing and not burning them out to a point to where they have no downtime. Because the way we see it, if they don't understand how to manage downtime now, as they get older and they have to figure out what to do when they're bored, that's when some other things can start creeping in. So we want them to understand that there's going to be times where you got to use your imagination and know how to handle yourself whenever there's not something constantly going. So that's my 2 cents.
Good word. Clayton, anything?
I think divide and conquer is the key. And there's pitfalls with that, because if your marriage isn't strong enough, now granted, this is if you have multiple kids. I mean, if you've got one kid, it's a whole lot easier. So I'm speaking to the folks that have multiple children, like all of us do, or Ryan's got 3, Scott and I have 4. You have to be able to divide and conquer, and your marriage has to be strong enough to support that.
Yep.
Because it could kill a marriage in an instant, trying to divide and conquer, because then you don't have time with your wife. So it literally, to me, is any free moment you have, it needs to be utilized to its best degree, doing something with, whether it be with your wife, with all of your kids, with one of your kids at a time. There's really not a lot of time for you by yourself. I mean, we have to figure that out. Even as men, we have to figure out there are some times that we need some times by ourselves, and we need to go hang out with our friends, but it doesn't happen that often. And that's just unfortunately, that's the way it is if you want to have a strong family. If you don't, then by all means, go to the bar, go play golf every day, go travel with your boys, and don't be around your kids. But you're going to regret that later in life, because your kids are going to not respect you. They're not going to want to be around you. They're going to regret things that they missed together as a family. So it is a balance that we have to do every day. I don't have a secret formula for it. The one thing I think we do, that Ginger and I try to do, is, and this isn't on a daily basis, this is more a yearly, we take each kid on a trip by ourselves. So like we go for 3 or 4 days to Boston or Chicago, one-on-one, or I take the boys and we go somewhere, so that we have some bonding time together. She takes the girls somewhere, and then we'll take a family trip as well. Those really help to kind of solidify and bring everything back from the craziness that we deal with on a daily basis.
Good. So time's wrapping up here for this episode, but I definitely want to ask you guys, if you don't mind, hang on, and we'll finish this part 2, because I want to dive more into, as men, how do we navigate our time? How do we demonstrate to our wife, our kids, all of that? So if you guys can hang on. I also want to say real quick, as we were talking, and we're talking about being parents, and we have our spouse, and for the single parents out there who juggle all of what we're talking about by themselves, hats off, because I don't know how single parents do what they do. And if you know someone who's a single parent, I would encourage you to try to find ways to come alongside them and encourage them, support them. It may just be listening to them, but any single parent, I guarantee you, would appreciate any additional support they can get, because I can't even wrap my head around what that would take to be a single parent. And so thankful and blessed that Lisa and I were able to do what we did together. And so anyway, that's just, as you guys were talking, I was thinking through that. So anyway, any last word before we break?
That was a great call. I mean, yeah, more power to those guys, the single parents. That's you got to applaud being able to manage yourself, your work, your kids, juggling it all yourself. So yeah, great call out on that, Scott.
All right, well, stick around. We're gonna talk some more and dive in a little deeper on the husband, the man side of things. But for now, I appreciate you guys tuning in, listening, watching. Please like, share, let all your friends know if you enjoy the podcast. Share on social media. But I do appreciate Clayton and Lindsey taking time, or Clayton, Lindsey, and Ryan Rickards taking time to be with us again. And as always, appreciate you gentlemen taking time out of your busy schedule. But for now, thanks, peace, until next time.